When you come to power and your hallmark is the sort of popular prime minister and all the rest of it, you've got to realise after a time that what you owe people in the end is your judgment and your character as to what you believe is right for the country. And if they like it, that's fine. If they don't like it, well, they've got their choice. We're a democracy. They're the boss.
So how will all this go down in the hall tomorrow when the real debates start? For this was passion with a purpose. Mr. Blair's team are worried they've got tangled up in messy technical debates and forgotten to tell people what they really believe in. You hear a lot about fairness this week, but will it wash? Yes, it is a line in the sand, drawn by Britain's biggest union, objecting to foundation hospitals. So, now Mr. Blair's signalled he'll come down, cross it, rub it out with his foot and probably kick down their sandcastles as well. What do they think?
We want to be part of an agreed agenda that looks forward to improve things. And I think Tony's got to take that on board. We're his friends. And if he doesn't listen to his friends, well, God help him.
As delegates fortify themselves for the week ahead, some are cross they won't get a vote on the issue that's overshadowed everything else, Iraq. The unions turned down the idea, so Mr. Blair's confidence won't be put to the test. Here, at any rate. Mark Mardell, BBC News, Bournemouth.
Well, let's talk to our political editor, Andrew Marr, who's in Bournemouth for us. And Andrew, it was a very robust defence, not only of his policy in Iraq, also his domestic policies. What do you make of Mr. Blair's approach?
Well, I think it was one of those rare occasions where, frankly, the body language was as important as the actual words that he was using. Because here he's been very, very poor opinion polls, a slide in the polls, a great deal of public unease about all sorts of issues, Iraq and domestic issues too. And the big question has really been, does Tony Blair still have it? Down in his waters, in his bowls, has he got the real energy, the drive to carry on doing this job at the top level? And you may think it's ghastly news, you may think it's good news, but it's perfectly clear from that interview that he still does have it. That was his message to the party conference, to the watching public, and of course also to Gordon Brown, because he was asked right at the end of that interview about this famous pact that he was supposed to have with Gordon Brown at Granita Restaurant, whereby he'd hand over power to the Chancellor after a certain amount of time, and he absolutely denied it. Looked about as surprised and offended as if it'd been suggested that he'd run away without paying the bill.
Indeed. Mark Mardell was just saying it will be a very difficult week for the Prime Minister at a conference this week. What for you will be his biggest challenge?
Well, there's of course the question of Iraq, and they're dealing with that as things stand by simply not talking about it, not perhaps the most heroic way of dealing with that problem. But there's tuition fees and foundation hospitals are probably the key issues that we know about, where there are rebellions expected in the Commons. That will be difficult. And I think the next tranche of issues are about how liberal this Labour government is going to be when it comes to sending asylum seekers back without the option and without appeals, and things like ID cards, still rejected by the Cabinet, still being argued about. Now, those are very, very big issues. I think we will hear the beginnings of the big debate about whether New Labour is actually left-wing or right-wing, if I can put it in those things, when it comes to social policies, as well as on the economy.
OK, Andrew, thanks very much. And if you missed Breakfast with Frost this morning, you can see that interview with Tony Blair again. It's on BBC News 24 at 10:30 tonight. Other news now, and hundreds of thousands of Italians are still without electricity tonight after the country was hit by a massive power cut. The blackout, which happened early this morning, took just 4 seconds to affect more than 50 million people. That's almost the whole country. The power is back on now in the north, but many parts of the south are still cut off. Power supplies from both France and Switzerland were lost. Now there's a row over who's to blame. Brian Barron reports from Rome.
The Pantheon in all its glory. After the sudden darkness of the early hours, Italy's monuments and masterpieces are back in the limelight as the faltering power grid is restored across the nation. The irony is that 1 million people had turned out in Rome for an all-night party hosted by civic leaders. But their aim of showcasing the benefits of city living was suddenly embarrassingly eclipsed. At 3:25 a.m, in just 4 seconds, Italy was plunged into darkness. A steady downpour which began soon after took the fun out of stumbling through black streets. Surprisingly, only 4 deaths have been reported, including a traffic accident and 2 elderly women who fell downstairs. Tens of thousands of underground and train passengers were stranded in Rome and Milan as the network seized up. But just about everyone showed great patience.
But there is no train at all. I don't know, nobody knows anything. We just know that there is no electricity all over Italy.
For the emergency services, it was the worst of mornings. Firemen had to answer thousands of calls up and down Italy. In this building, a man was trapped in a lift, but someone heard his calls for help.
Okay.
Italy relies on some French and Swiss power. Italians blame the blackout on the Swiss, who say it's too soon to know.
It's too early to give guilty to one or the other. We think that this system of the transmission line is a very complex system. We now have to clarify carefully what happened. We think that the problem was caused in Italy.
Tonight, as the hunt for scapegoats starts, sports fans here relaxed, though further south there are many communities still in the dark. Brian Barron, BBC News, Rome.
A British man arrested over the deaths of 2 teenagers in Spain is being investigated by police who are hunting the killer of the 13-year-old Surrey schoolgirl Millie Dowler. Scotland Yard have confirmed they're looking into the movements of Tony King, who was arrested on the Costa del Sol 9 days ago. Police in Sheffield have arrested 2 men after a house fire in which 2 people died. Firefighters called to the house found a 37-year-old woman with stab wounds to the neck and chest. A man in his 30s later died from smoke inhalation. A teenage boy missing since Tuesday has tonight been found safe and well. Darren Freeman from Redbrook in South Wales returned home this evening. Detectives who had been searching for him were concerned he could have been abducted by someone he met over the internet. Women are being warned to become more aware of the dangers of heart disease. The British Heart Foundation says women wrongly believe that breast cancer is the main threat to their health, but the charity says they're actually 4 times more likely to die of a heart problem.
If she hadn't had a heart bypass operation, Judy Casey wouldn't be here today. Years of heavy smoking, a poor diet and no exercise had taken its toll. Even so, she was amazed to be diagnosed with coronary heart disease.
Quite frankly, I thought it was a man's disease. I thought my smoking might have been doing my lungs some harm, but no, heart disease or anything about my heart didn't even remotely cross my mind.
The British Heart Foundation says coronary heart disease is the leading cause of death amongst women, killing around 54,000 each year. That's 4 times as many as die from breast cancer, but the perception amongst women is very different.
The perception is that they're much more likely to die of breast cancer. In reality, the risk is about the same up until the menopause, and after the menopause they're much more likely to die of heart disease than they are of breast cancer.
The British Heart Foundation survey says 20% of women are now seriously overweight, which increases the risk of heart disease. High blood pressure is also a problem amongst women, affecting some 40%, but the vast majority have never spoken to their doctors about cardiac health. The problem is lifestyle. Young women in particular smoke and drink more than ever, while eating unhealthily and doing too little exercise. They are the next generation of heart patients. Richard Lister, BBC News.
The Pope has appointed 31 new cardinals, most of whom will help elect his successor. One of them is Keith O'Brien, the Archbishop of St Andrews and Edinburgh. European space officials are tonight monitoring the progress of the Smart 1 probe as it heads towards the moon.
4, 3, 2, unité, feu.
It blasted off from French Guiana a few minutes after midnight for a journey that's going to last well over a year. After that, it's going to spend nearly 3 years mapping the moon's surface. The flight had originally been planned for the end of August, but it was postponed twice. Now, with news of yet another win for Michael Schumacher and, of course, all the rest of the day's sport, here's Hazel.
Thanks, Shan. Good evening to you. Yes, the champagne is on ice. Michael Schumacher is on the verge of a record-breaking 6th world title after taking the checkered flag in the US Grand Prix at Indianapolis. The Ferrari driver needs just 1 more point from the last race of the season in Japan in a fortnight's time, and the only man who can stop him is McLaren's Kimi Raikkonen.
Starting from 7th on the grid, the pressure was on Michael Schumacher, but by the end of the first lap, he was up to 4th and hassling his title rivals. Juan Pablo Montoya tangled with the other Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. Montoya was blamed for the collision and given a time penalty. That damaged his title challenge, but the weather effectively ended it. A downpour caught out half the teams as drivers spun out of contention before they had a chance to change tyres, Montoya amongst them. Not Michael Schumacher. King of the wet, he relished the conditions and picked his way through an unfamiliar leading pack. Mark Webber and Jenson Button led for a time, but Schumacher was soon back in his usual position. Montoya battled from 2 laps down to try and keep his championship dreams alive. 6th wasn't good enough. So only Kimi Räikkönen can catch Schumacher now, but the Finn's storming drive for 2nd has probably only delayed the Ferrari party. Schumacher needs just 1 more point for a record 6th title. Ollie Foster, BBC News.
To football, and England captain David Beckham could miss next month's decisive Euro 2004 qualifier in Turkey. The Real Madrid midfielder injured his right foot while taking a free kick in last night's 2-0 defeat by Valencia. He missed training today and he looked in some discomfort at a press conference. Liverpool have missed out on the chance to climb the Premiership ladder into 4th place today. They were undone by an impressive hat-trick from Charlton's Kevin Lisbie at the Valley, giving the Addicks their first home win of the season.
Football fans have always been fickle. Charlton supporters have spent most of the season booing Kevin Lisbie, but after his hat-trick against Liverpool, they were chanting his name. Not that it started too well for Charlton. Vladimir Smicha latched onto Harry Kewell's superb pass and finished neatly. But for all Liverpool's attacking options, their defence was woeful at times. Lisbie was given time and space for the equaliser. And he put Charlton ahead by half-time as he showed the quickest reactions in the box. Not long into the second half, Chris Perry climbed all over Emile Heskey, a clear penalty. And Michael Owen kept a clear head to pull Liverpool back into it. Neither side seemed satisfied with a draw, but it took something extremely special to win it. Lisbie picked up the ball inside his own half, and it soon became obvious he had only one thing on his mind. But even he couldn't have imagined the outcome. He said it's the best goal he's ever scored, and though his manager now expects more of them, he'll savour this moment for a while. Sasha Upton, BBC News.
In today's other Premiership matches, Tottenham's caretaker manager David Pleat watched his team steal a point at Manchester City in a goalless draw. At Ewood Park, Blackburn Rovers had no answer to the pace and trickery of Louis Saha, who sealed Fulham's 2-0 victory and consigned Rovers to their 3rd home defeat. And a Steve Watson hat-trick was the foundation of Everton's emphatic 4-0 success against troubled Leeds United. Kenya's Paul Tergat has shattered the world marathon record by an incredible 43 seconds. He held off his compatriot and pacemaker Sammy Career to take the Berlin Marathon title and become the first man ever to run the distance in under 2 hours and 5 minutes. Terrific achievement. That's your sport.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Now let's get the very latest on the weather with Michael Fish. Hello, Michael.
Hello, thank you very much indeed. I think unsettled really is the word for the weather in the next few days, although as far as southern parts are concerned, we are going to have to wait a while before we get any real rain, but we are going to be attacked from 2 directions. First of all, low pressure slipping down from the north, another area of low pressure developing and easing up from the south, and between them they're going to give us all some rain and occasionally some quite windy weather to go with it. Now, at the moment, across England and Wales, most of the showers have gone, the skies are broken. Still some showery bursts of rain you'll notice over Scotland and Northern Ireland. And later on in the night, those showery outbreaks are going to be joined by more general rain coming in from the west. But with clearing skies or clear skies further south, look out for a cold night, widespread ground frost, even a touch of air frost in the odd notorious spots like, for instance, Red Hill. But further north, with that wind and the cloud and the rain, it will be much milder. In fact, I think tomorrow for southeastern parts of the country, it is by and large going to be a dry day, a fairly bright day too, some sunshine, just the outside chance, I suppose, of the odd shower. But we start off quite wet through much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and very gradually as the day wears on, those outbreaks of rain will creep a little bit further south, eventually getting into northern England through Wales, maybe down to the far southwest as well, allowing western Scotland and Northern Ireland to turn somewhat brighter, although there will be a scattering of showers. On the warm side again, I think you'll find in southeastern areas with that sunshine, it's 17 degrees, temperatures about normal or so further north. Heading into Tuesday, again, southeastern parts have a nice day, dry and warm and bright with some sunshine, band of rain in between, some dry and bright weather further north, but by Wednesday it'll be the turn of the south to have that rain. That's all for now.
Thank you very much, Michael. Finally, tonight's main story, and Tony Blair has fiercely defended the war on Iraq and has vowed to push ahead with controversial domestic reforms. And that's the latest news. Now on BBC One, Panorama is back, and tonight Andy Davis follows the American soldiers occupying Baghdad. Just a warning that the film contains strong language and scenes that some viewers may find disturbing.